Go ahead.
Hi. Today we're going to discuss informal testing. The purpose of this is many tutors and teachers do not have access to formal testing for a couple reasons. One is they are not qualified to give the formal test, which many of them are so easy, anybody could give it, but they've set it up that you need like a master's degree to learn the test or whatever. That's one reason. Or two is they just don't have access to the test, any kind of test. So that's one purpose. But it's also the purpose of it is to use it during tutoring when you're working with my students, that you can use these informal tests regularly to see how the child's improving and then measure that with more formal tests before and after. So we're using presently the 3-minute test through Scholastic. We use that, we use the tower, and we use my survey, my spelling test, as kind of our initial pre-post. So our pre-post will look what's the improvement on the 3-minute Scholastic, what's the improvement in the tower, what's the improvement curriculum test, what's the improvement on words per minute in our books. That's one of the most basics because that shows like a child started with Ocean Fun reading 20 words a minute at 1.0 and now is reading Lightning Woman at 4.5 at 80 words a minute. I mean, it's one of the most basic forms of growth. So that's informal testing. Now, in some environments like Detroit, we use the Woodcock Word Attack, Word ID, and Comprehension, where our students actually do best on those tests. And I work with Stern School as well. I'd like to use that with the school. You, again, I believe have to have a master's and you have to be trained. And I've been doing it for years, to be quite frank. So, but you have those technical problems. So this informal testing solves that, where if you're tutoring a child, you'll be able to show real growth through these informal tests. And they're hitting word attack, sight word, comprehension, and fluency. And you can get them for free. Okay, so let's start with my word attack test. And here is my form. Let me show it to you. I have this form, which is called informal testing. You'll get a copy of this. And it has what's called the TNT, which is the Tattum Nonsense Test. And it deals with nonsense words. Now, my nonsense words follow my program. They follow the entire code. So it starts with closed syllables and then with consonant, vowel, consonant, and then it adds blends and teams. It adds talking think words, the silent E, breaking words into syllables, our family, diphthongs, walkers, and multi-syllable words with endings and Latin suffixes. It's 20 words. But that 20 words covers our whole program. So your child may be able in 1 minute, that's all you get, in 1 minute to do 6 words, which is you just multiply the 6 words times 5, there's 20 words, 5 points for each word, makes 100. So they may get 30% in the minute when they start. And then 2 months later, maybe getting 70% in the minute. Now, I have 2 guys I've worked with for a while, and one of them did all the words with, I think, 1 error at 56 seconds. So he was under the minute. So in that case, I'm going to put that he got 95% at 56 seconds. That's under. The other one got 90% at 36 seconds. So that means he's quickly sounding out these words. And that's what transfers to reading. Slow sounding out does not transfer to fluent reading. If you're having to approach a word like velvet and I'm going v, o, vel, v, vet, you're not going to be a fluent reader. You got to be able to go velvet. Fantastic. So I am constantly working to move a child from the sound stage in the first 7 concepts to the syllable stage at the vowel tag, or what I call the breaking. So once you're in 2 and 3 syllable words, you really need to be able to just say the syllables. Okay. So this test is measuring that you made that movement. So your child may eventually be reading 30% of the words and it takes in a minute. Then they may be able to read 50% of the words in a minute. That means they're reading quicker in syllables, which will translate to faster reading. Okay. So this is nonsense words. The sight word test is not just general sight words, which often on test will have words that are phonetic. Mine are the pure sight words from the 1,000 most frequent words. So my sight word list 1 is actually going to be dealing with the most important kindergarten, first grade sight words, not phonics words. My list 2 will be dealing with the most first, second grade sight words. And then my list 3 will be dealing with 4th grade to adult sight words. So I have 4 forms of each of these tests. So if you're doing the nonsense word and you test them, you can retest on 3 other forms to see how the child's doing. And the forms all follow the same patterns. The same with the sight word test. I have 4 forms for that. So on the kindergarten list, he may do the kindergarten first grade list, 20 words. He may only read 5 of them in 30 seconds. You get a 30-second time there. So he may be reading, that's like 25%. Okay. Then he may, on another form, be reading 10 words, which is 50%. So you're going to have 4 forms. Okay. So it's nonsense, 4 forms, and this 4 forms. Again, the forms are parallel. My sight word test, rather than giving 6 different sight words each time, which to me doesn't make sense. If you're giving different sight words each test, that's assuming your word form area is firing and you're remembering any sight word you see. But a lot of my kids, that's not the case. So I have the same sight words in each of the tests, but they're rearranged differently so that you're really becoming better at the most frequent sight words. So that's the premise of these 2 nonsense words, the full code, 4 forms. Are you getting fluent and better? The real words, sight word. What sight words do you know? Are you getting better at your grade level? And then the ACE test, which is a free test that measures comprehension and fluency. And that's free. And I also take note of the errors. So a child will leave at 50 words a minute at 75% comprehension with 5 errors. That's good information. So if you give these 3 tests, you're going to know how the child's sight word has progressed, how their phonics program has progressed, and how their fluency and comprehension is progressing. And that's informal, all free. Short and sweet, by the way. The nonsense is 1-minute test. The sight word is a 30-second test. Okay. You may also do these untimed if you want. So you may do the phonics timed and then go ahead and just see what they can do out of the 20 words and have an untimed score. That's your option. I mentioned that here. Okay, so let's go to the nonsense test. Okay. So here is Form A. Form B, C, and D will look just like this, but they'll be different. The first word for B may be AM. This one may be EF. This one may be a TO that follows the same pattern, but different words. So you're measuring improvement in these patterns. So the child can go like this, I, M. We sounding out's okay, as long as they read the word after they sound it out. A, af. Now this is inefficient, but this is where kids will start. R, a, s, ras. M, mun. B, x, Bex. And they may only get this done in a minute, sound and out. So that would be 5. There's 20 words, 5 times 5. They got 25% on this test, 25% in the 1 minute. Okay. Now, in order to really make improvement, and it's night and day, is when you can do this. Im, af, ras, mun, bex, quex, presh, sprig, crince, dring, tripe, frayed, macnot, dridlop, promate, promate, flarster, glostoid, hunobel, sailoshin, strine, leacher. That's where you make your great improvement. That's where my student who I worked with quite a while did that in 36 seconds. Okay. That tells you they have internalized the code. Okay. So this is fine to go when you have a beginning start 1 or 2. That's a child who is at the sounding out stage with short vowels and consonants. That's what they'll be doing. Okay. But once you get to multi-syllable words, which is concept 8, the vowel tag, you want to start moving from sounding out to saying the whole syllable. Okay. We want them to move from to see im. Okay. Af, ras. So we'll model that and have them try and remodel it. This is a big change. I have a child with severe dyslexia that still has difficulty with that. He's making improvement, but he still has difficulty. Okay. Okay. So that's Form A. Okay. So basically, the directions on this is we just tell the child to sound out the words. If you sound it or say the words, if you sound it out, make sure you say the word at the end. But the goal is to read these as quick as possible. So they'll go im, af. So the directions are laid out on my plan. But here, actuality, I just want them to say these syllables as quick as they can, and you get 1 minute. Okay. Now look at, as you can see, macnot is the vowel tag or breaking. Dridlop, you know, my kid today, of course, went driblop, so it's wrong. But even though he's doing well at there, he still has that BD problem, driblop. So I had to count it wrong. This could be promate or promate. This is flarster. My kid first said flirster, and then he self-corrected today, the flarster. Glostoy. I had a kid make it glosteroy. He wanted to put an in there. Hunoibel, this kid nailed that. Celosian, he nailed that. He wanted to call this strignaleacher, didn't see the IGH. Stry, okay? Strine leacher. Okay, so that's the kid who I think got 90% in 36 seconds. Okay, he missed 2. So your score is simply the amount of words he did correctly times 5 in 1 minute. So you're just going to have, you'll have TNT, Form A, you'll have the date, 30%. And that tells you did 30% of the words in a minute. You can do this test anytime you want. You could redo Form A a couple times and then test them on Form B. You can then redo Form B a couple times and then test them on Form C. Okay. This is just letting you know how he's progressing. Now, again, after a minute, let's say he gets the dring, you can go ahead and do the rest untimed. And so he may be able to do 80% untimed. So you'll have a timed score and an untimed. You don't have to do the untimed, but that lets you know how he's doing on the full code. So you can have a timed of 30% and an untimed of 50%. Okay. So that's Form A. I have Form B and C. All right, let me go look at the directions. The kindergarten kids in these directions, which I'll show you. Directions, this is kind of summarizing. First, here's a little description. It's a nonsense word attack test that begins with closed syllables and ends in multi-syllable words, etc. Then the directions. Students first try to say the word or try to sound out the word. If they sound it out, they then have to say the word. So they can go X and then say Bex, but they have to say the word. So they may receive 2 tries. The attempts are timed, so students become more efficient decoders. They'll be able to say the nonsense quicker without sounding out. That's our goal. The teacher may stop the test at the first sign of frustration. So if your kid's going at that, stop the test. If you see them start to cry or tear up or whatever, just stop and say they got 5%. Stopped at frustration point. That's important. Okay, so that's up for you. I was working with a kid online a month back, and she started to tear up, but I couldn't tell it. Or no, she was kind of coughing, which sounded like a cough, not a cry. And she moved away from the screen, and I couldn't tell that that was happening. And as soon as I figured out what was going on, I stopped and went to something else. So that's just an intuitive thing. Now the kindergarten kids should be able to do the 5 first words by the end of kindergarten, and some will be able to do all 10. So the kindergarten test is only the first 10 words. Now, some people in kindergarten go into my full program in which they could try all 20 words. Some kindergartens actually start with boot camp and then go into my regular phonics program with Tells a Youth, in which case they could do all 20 words. But in general, at kindergarten, they should be able to do the 5 words correctly and do all right on the next 5. So we only test them on 10 words. So they get 10% for each word correctly. So on the kindergarten, they may start at 0, okay? And then they may get 40%, and then by the end, they may get 80%. Okay, that's good. First grade tests should be able to do all 20 words. The first 10 words, they should be able to do correctly right off the bat pretty quickly. But they still will attempt all 20 words. So they receive 5% for each correct word. If they get 7 right, they get a 35%. They should read all first 20 words. The teacher may continue for an on-time score. So they may get 35% timed and 50% untimed if you want to do the untimed. Again, that's up to you. Second grade to adult reads all 20, 5% for each word. Okay, so even an adult level, see, this list is ungraded because it deals with the full code. It deals with more than a lot of the phonics tests do. It's dealing sequentially with the whole code. So if they can't do 2-syllable words, that tells you what you need to know, okay? Okay. So in summary, students will receive a percentile for 1 minute. A child at first grade may initially read 30% of all 20 words correctly in a minute. A month later, she may read 70% correctly in a minute. Child may read 50% of the words timed, 60 untimed. A month later, 60% timed, 80% untimed. Now that's important information that you would then could write about, pointing out that at 50%, she could do these words, but couldn't do these, okay? Quick test, 1 minute. So you can do this regularly. All right, now the sight word test has 3 lists. Okay. This is taken from the most frequent sight words. So these are all pure sight words. This is kindergarten words. Believe it or not, kindergarten kids can read these words. My kids can't, and they're in like 3rd grade, 5th grade. But so if we're at kindergarten or beginning first, we time this 30 seconds. How many words can they do? Now, my severe dyslexic child did list 2 in 22 seconds, which was pretty shocking. for me to see that. If you're reading this at normal speed, it's easy to do it under 30. Let me show you. I'm going to time myself. 2, here, you, come, was, are, the, into, one, have, of, knew, what, wore, there, our, who, said, do, any. 30 seconds. But here's what many of your kids will do. 2, here, you, come, was, are, the, into. They'll be reading, if they have the sight word, they'll read them pretty quickly. Okay. Now you're making note which are the sight words they don't know, and those will be the first words you'll teach for sight word using T2, which is touch and teach. I've shown that on another one, but that's like if they don't know the word the, they'd go the. So it's tap and teach, I'm sorry, Then I show what doesn't play fair, the. So we would use the T2 technique to teach those words. And then we would time them on a daily basis of reading this list. This I discuss in another workshop. Okay, so that's kindergarten first. Now, if you have a first, second grader, we go ahead and just start them at this list. But if they miss 4 words in the first 10, we stop and go back and do this list. So we'll know what words they missed here, and then we'll go make sure these are done, squared away. Okay. So that's a grade, first grade. These are first and second grade words. This is where start twos will begin. But if they start blowing these right off the bat, we stop and go to this list. Okay. Now, a start 3 or start 4, 3rd to 6th graders, these are the sight words that upper level kids have trouble with. And this is the one I'm teaching my child now as dyslexia to do. Bought, another, although, course, laugh, thought, enough, young, touch, climb. These are the real sight words, if you look at them, that kids have trouble with, okay? So your kindergarten kid, this may be, he may be just working on this list. Your first, second grader may be working on this till he gets it correct. Your upper kid might know this, and so this is the list I'm timing them on. Now, I'm going to hold this here, and I'm going to show you what my list B looks like. All right, so all right, here's my list B. So it has the same words, but they're in a different order. Now, the question is, Steve, why are you given the same words? You practice those words. Well, you know what? These are from the 1,000 most frequent sight words. There's the ones I want them to memorize. I'm not going to test on some bogus word like Ostrogoth or slovenly. Who cares? I'm dealing with the most frequent sight words, and I want to show improvement on the most frequent. So this is the same as list A, but in a different order. This is the same as list B, but in a different order. This is the same as list 3 here. I mean, list 2. This is the same as list 3, but in a different order. Okay. So when you practice list A a bit, you can do the list, try the list B for a time. Once you've timed him on list B, you can practice him reading that list B and timing him on that list. And then list C has the same words in another order. Okay. Now, my program centers around the fact that a lot of work on sight word, if the child's fusiform gyrus or word form area is not firing, is a waste of time. we got to stimulate this word form area below the ear through our full program, and it gets stimulated, and they'll start picking up sight words themselves. So we're focusing on the most frequent sight words is what we're focusing on. My two guys who were start twos, beginning threes, who couldn't remember a word to save their life, now when they sound out a word, they got it. Professor, estimate, directions, astronomical. When they sound it out after one or two times, they've got the word because their word form area is now firing. I didn't have to teach the words. They're logging them as they read. So when I have a child, usually my start ones, twos, and threes, when I start my my child who is a start 1, 2, or 3, I'm usually assuming the fact that their word form area is not firing. I'll find out real quick. And so I want them to learn the most frequent words, but I don't focus on much more with sight words. Okay. In my program, if you're dealing with this list, you'll just time them on the list and then do beat the clock. So you'll time them for maybe see how long it takes them to get that list done, and then you'll try to beat your time. And that'll take a minute or two before you do your reading. Once they've aced this list, we'll go to this one and time them as far as they know, and then they do beat the clock. So we're working on these sight words, and we're not worried about a lot others. And even if the child only knows a few of these, that's okay, because we have to stimulate his word form area to get these to come easy. Okay. All right. So let's look at the TST. Okay. All right. You can't see this yet. Okay. So the TST that should be TS. There you go. I just completed this today. I've modified it for today. Okay, the students will say the word in one take, not sound them out. If they sound it out, it's wrong. If they self-correct, it counts. If they say the word hour and go or hour and self-correct, that's okay. But sounding out is not sight word knowledge. You only get 30 seconds. Quick test. List 1 is the kindergarten. The students will read these words for 30 seconds. After that, they'll discontinue. They'll receive 5% for each word. So if a child gets 8 words correct, they get 40%. Now, kindergarten kids may be able to do all the words, okay? But if they can't and they're having trouble with some of the words and they get frustrated, just stop. So they get 8 right, 40%, and stop because of frustration, okay? But they're trying to do the whole list because it's interesting. You can have kids who can't read, but they know the sight words because the teachers did one thing with them and taught sight words. First, list 2, first, second grade, the start 2 students who pass list 1, as well as start 3 students will begin on list 2. Again, you get 30 seconds. If they have trouble with list 2, you go back to list 1. That's a general rule. So if you're starting at a higher list, you're missing 4 and 10 words, you go back to the previous list. Higher kids, 3rd through 6th grade kids may start at list 3, which is tough. Unless they miss 4 and 10, we go back and do list 2. Okay. So simple test. In summary, let's boil it down to the essentials. In nonsense words, you're timing for 1 minute. You see how many words they can do and you multiply it by 5, unless they're kindergarten kids. You're only doing 10 words in kindergarten, but you're timing them. And then you have a percent score. That's the test. You can do that regularly. You can also do an untimed as well if you want. For sight words, you're timing them based on what level they're at for 30 seconds. What percent? 30 seconds, this kindergarten kid could get 4 words. That's 20%. Great. Untimed, he did maybe 10 words. Okay. Again, untimed is up to you if you want to do it. So this gives you 2 measures. So your entering kid, his score on the TNT is 20%. That means he doesn't know phonics. His score on sight word is 20%. That means his sight word is not working. So then I do a grade level test on the ACE, which is free. So this kid's in 2nd grade. So I'm going to go to the ACE. Here is where you go. I have it logged up. So I'm going to get the ACE test. I love this ACE test. So 2nd grader. All right, so I'm going to show you this. You see it, the test? Everybody sees it, okay. So I'm going to do the first theme, which is general. It has 3 stories for general, 3 for American history, 3 for earth and science. Famous people are long stories. I stay away from that. And fun facts. So I'm going to pick general. Text complexity is 2nd grade. And I'm going to select the first story. That's all you got to do. Now the child begins to read. They will read, and you're going to make a note of errors. A shepherd boy, that's 1 error, watched a flock of sheep near his village. That's 2 errors. One day he was bored and decided to play a prank. He cried out, "Woof, woof," as loudly as he could. The villagers came running, but nothing was there except the boy and the sheep. The boy Logahud laughed. I'll tell them the word when they make a mistake. Laughed at them for being so silly and went back to his work. He cried, "Woof, woof, woof," 3 more times. The last time the villagers got very angry and warned him, "You'll be sorry for this." One day the wolf really came and the shepherd boy was scared. That's 4 errors. He shouted to the villagers, "Please come and help me. The wolf is killing the sheep." But this time nobody listened. They didn't come to help. The wolf had nothing to fear. He took his time and ate all the sheep. So that recorded how many words, but I put down he got 5 errors. Now we may read these together. A shepherd boy watched a flock of sheep near his, and he'll put an answer. Village. One day the boy decided to go into the village, play a prank, play with wolf. Okay, let's say play with the villagers came running, but nothing was there except the boy and the sheep. The wolf had nothing to fear. He took his time and ate the villagers. All right, so now before I grade it, I'll say, let's review your answers. One of my tutors did this, and it was night and day. It was either Jenny or Tara, had the kids review their, and they changed too, and they were correct. So they'll quick look and go, well, this ain't right. All the sheep. All right, now I push done. Okay. Now, this kid read 157 words per minute at 75%. Since this is 2nd grade, that's really good, because our rule of thumb is 70 at 1st grade in the spring, add 20 every year after that. So 70, 90, 110, 130, 150. He's reading the 2nd grade at a 5th grade fluency. So my question is, why is this kid here? Right? Well, it turns out he has comprehension problems and doesn't, well, he's got 75%. So he may be just a start 5, one of my higher starts. I've had kids come in like this, that they just want to improve their reading. So I go to start 5, where I am putting them in a novel pretty quickly. I take them in a high book, put them in a novel, and push their reading. So from this, notice you got 3 scores. You got You have the words per minute, you have the comprehension, and the errors, which you take note of. So he read 157 words a minute, 75% with 5 errors. We test our kids at grade level. So I can have a start 2 is reading at, first grade. We'll still give him, if he's a third grader, the third grade version just to see what he's doing. Okay. If he's fifth grader, we'll give him the fifth grade version just to see what he's doing. And if he gets frustrated, we will stop and say, quit at frustrated. Will there be no score? When we post test, we re-give this, and we'll often give a grade higher as well. All right, so now if you do this, this only takes a few minutes. So in literally 10 minutes, you'll have a word attack score, a sight word score, a words per minute, a comprehension, and an error analysis in 10 and 15 minutes or so. So those are informal tests, but they give you the information between that and your weekly recording of words per minute in the book, which shows the most growth. I mean, that's unbelievable. One of our tutors started a kid in Ocean Fun written at first grade, and they were reading that in like 30 words a minute. And the child's now in Conflict in the Clouds in another series, which is 5.5 and reading 90 words a minute. I mean, that's unbelievable. That's, to me, the most important data, using our books. So in summary, with the informal testing and curriculum-based testing, you get a measure of word attack, a measure of sight word, a measure of comprehension, fluency, and errors. And with our books, you get a measure of growth and just general reading ability and fluency. All right, we will now pause for questions.
Steve,
about this or anything. Yeah.
A couple of questions. Using these informal ones, you are not replacing the reading survey for like a start spot in the program, correct?
Oh no, the reading survey is how you start. It's how you start everything, is the reading survey.
So are you using these more as like a progress monitoring?
Yes, progress monitoring. However, Kara, a lot of people don't have access to test, or they're not certified. You can use this and give parents all the data. I mean, the parents, the data, because you got a kid at 10% on the word attack. You say he can only do two words with consonant, vowel, consonant. Now he's getting 60%. He's not only doing that, he's doing silent E, he's doing our family, he's doing 2-syllable words. So that's a huge change. Now at sight words, he couldn't do any, and now he's doing 40% of second grade sight words. Yeah, so you'll have data there that you can use if you have access. If you don't have access to data. See what happens, a lot of teachers, the schools test not the first week, they test 6 weeks into it. So the kid's already grown if you tutored them. I've had schools that test after 6 weeks and the tutor's already finished with them because the tutor worked an hour a day for 6 weeks and they already rose their grade level, and now they're done and they're testing them for pre-test. You see what I mean? So this would be something you could do if you're in a district and they don't test till 6-8 weeks into the year. You could use it, but you could use it progress monitoring. So how you would do that is you would do the reading when you're in reading. You do the word attack and sight word test when you're on the syllable work, the reading of syllables. So in place of reading of syllables, you would do these 2 tests. In place of the beginning of reading, you'd do this, and then you'd go into reading of the book. I will do the ACE test and then go reading. Now, the ACE test, Steve, we might want to add this. Oh, Steve's microphone. You may want to add what I'm going to say now. So let me know when the microphone's on.
My microphone or yours?
Well, I'm going to add more to the lecture.
Go for it. It's on. Wait, hang on. It's still recording, correct?
We should have stopped recording to.
Did I not record this whole thing? No, it's going. It's going.
Okay. Now, remediation of these tests. Well, word attack, my whole program's about word attack. But if you want to be checking while you're going on a daily basis, I have diagnostic syllables, 3 pages of that will quickly time the child for 10 words in closed syllables, our family, long E, etc. And practicing that is going to work on word attack. Also, words and quotes is loaded with pages on word attack. My favorite are 44 and 45 for kids at the multi-syllable stage, because kids who are guessing at the first syllable, you have to do all 4 or 5 syllables with these nonsense words. And that deliberately transfers to their reading when they're working those large nonsense words. I find their word attack is much better. So those things all help the word attack. The sight word is stimulate the word form area, and sight words will be easy. Meanwhile, you are practicing them for a minute or 2 before you're reading by doing beat the clock with the word list they're on. Now, the timed reading, my books show growth in timed reading. However, the ACE is dealing with factually loaded material, which is unpredictable. Wolf, my student, told me, Mr. T, why I'm not as fluent as that is I can't predict, which he's right. A lot of it's unpredictable. So what I do is take a paragraph from that each day with my high kids, my start fours, and I time them on a paragraph, and we try to beat our time with that paragraph. I only do 1 paragraph. So I'm working beat the clock with that paragraph. And then we will do the full reading maybe at the end of the week. But I'm getting them used to dealing with dense material. So my beat the clock changes from my books when I'm at like the yellows or at a start 4, high 4. It moves from my books to passages from these ACE sheets. And I'm getting prepared for the kind of tests they'll take in school. This is something new I've discovered that I'm working with, because I've noticed the big difference when they move from Hatchet to this material. Hatchet, it has predictable information, which he can phrase read well. This factual stuff, a lot of it's unpredictable. I'm still trying to get him the phrase read in it. And that's difficult. So those are ways you can remediate that. And comprehension, if they're having comprehension, I have them do just statements after each paragraph. Somebody did something because. So this kid I work with earlier, I have him do just statements regularly because he has comprehension issues. So he'll do a paragraph or 2, and then he's got to tell me somebody did something because, and that helps the comprehension. When I'm done with reading anything, I do the W's with comprehension problems. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Okay. All right. So let's move on to questions.
Steve, I have a lot of families that are in the surrounding districts. They kind of do that, 4 or 5 weeks in, they do the test. And this is great to see growth.
Right.
So many of them want to know, like, where are they? Are they like halfway through 2nd grade? Are they towards the end? And they want to know that because of the fact that the district isn't, testing frequently.
Right.
So like, what would I do?
Oh, you have plenty of that, Becky. Number 1, you have the books that have grade level each book.
Right. Okay.
So your child, when he started, was reading at 0.6 camping, which was closed syllables. He's now reading Hurricane, which is a 2.9, 2nd grade, 9th month. He was reading at 30 words a minute. He's now reading 90, which is what you should be reading at 2nd grade. And he's reading at the end of 2nd grade. Now on his ACE test, he started out at 2nd grade, reading 25 words a minute with 5 errors and 50% comprehension. He's now reading that at 75 words a minute with 75% comprehension and 1 error. You got what you need, Becky, right there.
All right.
Yeah. Plus, you can talk about, in phonics, he knew nothing. He got 10% on the phonics test. He's now scoring reliably 50 to 60%. Or she is. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. Anyone else? About anything, by the way. This is our review day. So anything that you're stuck on.
I am stuck on